I love my greenhouse. No joke, it is amazing. There's so many things you can do to keep it ticking over. I have to do my special magic flip first. So yeah, the flip then. What happens is, I've only got a really small greenhouse. It's just a hobby greenhouse. And it means I have to be clever about the space and how I use it. But when you're clever about it, you can do so much with it. In spring, this is full of seedlings, and I've got space for potting up and bringing on more for sowing seeds, all that kind of thing. In summer, it is absolutely chock-a-block. It's a jungle in there with tomatoes and peppers and aubergines and some of my tender herbs. And then in winter, actually, again, I'm growing in here. It's got seedlings in there, it's got plants in there, it's giving me harvests over winter. And like I say, it's all about being clever. Very first thing then, our summer season is over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the peppers, aubergines and any tomatoes off the plants that I can use, and then I'm going to chop all those plants down. And that's the first stage. Gonna need a bigger basket. First things first then, peppers. I had to change baskets because I had too many for the little basket. So these are my King of the North peppers. These are my sort of standard bell peppers I grow every year. And these are what I've been calling Steve. So if you guys don't know the story, these were seeds I was given from another YouTuber, Robin, over at Robin's Container Garden. And they originally were just seeds that were taken from a store-bought pepper. So a pepper that she'd bought from our local supermarket, really liked, and then she saved the seeds. Now obviously a supermarket pepper's a hybrid. So when you save the seeds, you're not guaranteed to get the same thing again because it'll have attributes from both parent plants. But she discovered in the first year, some of the peppers she got were red and some were orange. But the orange ones were the ones she liked the flavour of the best. So she saved seeds from the orange ones. And then the next year, same again, the peppers that were the ones that she preferred, she saved the seeds. And you just keep doing that until you get a stable pepper that you like. And it is this one. Okay, so the first thing you might notice then is we have all these gorgeous, massive, ripe bell peppers, but there's not much in the way of tomatoes. That's actually okay, that's normal. If I do this, put these down. So this time of year for me then, this is the very end of my season for my summer crops. I've already harvested so many tomatoes, and what's left is just the very last, the runts if you like, and one or two might be ripe now, but on the whole they're going to be green. But that's okay, I've had a great year and loads of stuff, and this is about me tidying up, clearing out the greenhouse, changing it up for the next season, because it needs different things for different seasons. Tomatoes and peppers are gone. There's much more space in here now. I do like greenhouse turnover day. I like having some space. But there we go. It's not bad, is it? Given I've been harvesting for yonkies this season, That's not bad. Just going to finish up in here, and then once I'm finished, the next step is the actual changing up of the benches in here, and I'll show you how I do that so that it's just perfect for all my seeds starting needs and all my plants over winter. So here's the first thing then. I grow everything in my greenhouse in pots or containers, if you like. You don't have to do it that way, and in fact I could probably grow even more if I actually grew in beds in the ground in here. But the reason I grow in these pots is twofold. Firstly, it gives me much more in the way of options of what I'm growing, where I'm growing it. And as I mentioned before, being able to change up in here is really important to me to make the best use of the space I've got. But secondly, I specifically grow in these. These are called Quadgrows because they're units that have 4 pots for growing. And these are systems where you grow in these pots, which are quite small when you think that I'm growing bell peppers and tomatoes in them. But that's because the plants get all of their water and nutrition from a reservoir underneath. And that's the thing, these pots, if I can do this, have a piece of matting, it's called capillary matting or wicking, that go through the pot into the reservoir underneath, and through that the plant then pulls up all of the water and nutrition that it wants. And because of that, I can actually grow some pretty amazing crops in here because it gives it a really even and reliable watering and nutrition. So it suits me. But like I say, it's all about being able to grow what I want, where I want, and change things up. So that's why I do things in pots. So that's the first thing then. So this is the greenhouse flipped. You can hear it's a lot more echoey because I don't have all the plants in it now. But what I have for the coming months is space where I can make up my mixes for my potting on, where I can actually do the potting on. I can be sowing seeds. I can be laying out trays on both these benches where the little seedlings will live, and in spring I'll show you that I've got an awesome watering system that I set up using those trays. So all things that make the changeability of your greenhouse an awesome thing. I've gone from summer, where my greenhouse is all about growing, and I can grow huge tomato plants and pepper plants and aubergines, etc. in here. And now, over autumn and winter, it becomes a space where I can sow seeds, I can bring on seedlings. Also, I have plenty of space where I can be bringing in plants that need to be overwintered. So plants in your garden that are maybe not quite hardy enough to stay outdoors, and you can bring them into the greenhouse to give them that little bit extra protection. So this is one job I have then. I've got all of these little seedlings I need to pot up. That makes a good segue then. These are winter seedlings for me, so these are little plants that are pretty much hardy in my climate. So I can be growing these in the greenhouse over winter, and I don't need any extra heat to keep them going. Now here's the thing, This greenhouse will hold a bit of the heat that we get from the sun every day. So right now in here it's quite warm. I've got a t-shirt on. But when it gets proper freezing cold temperatures, it will still be freezing cold in here. So you can't grow summer crops in your greenhouse over winter unless you add heat and light and things to it. But for these little hardy guys, I can definitely use my greenhouse to get a boost and to grow over winter. And it's something I do a lot because it's great to still have green things growing, but also it's great to actually have crops you can be harvesting over winter. Now, the thing is, to be able to do all of this, it requires you also need to think about your spacing and what you have in your greenhouse. Let me explain. I do have a whole video just about this topic of making your greenhouse entirely usable throughout the year, and I'll link that in the description of the video and at the end. But for just now then, to do it briefly, at the minute the greenhouse looks quite empty, okay? But that's because I've got these shelves that I can use to put plants on or to store things on. So you can see I've got some pots so that in this area I can get everything I need. On this side, I've got some root trainers that I'm not going to be using for a while. I've got all my sowing implements at the top, trays, module trays. I've also got these benches that I've already mentioned. Now, the thing with these benches is they're great because they fold flat for summer or if I'm growing tall plants. And they're full-size benches, waist height, so they're great for me doing potting on and work like this at any time of year if they're up. They also allow me a little bit of storage. So what you can see then, because this is the area where I do seed sowing and potting on, I've also got two big boxes here that I keep my compost in, and if I'm using something else like perlite or vermiculite, cocoa coir, leaf mould, all of those things, I've got this to hand as well. It means it's easy for me to get what I need and make up my mixes for potting on. So it's like I've got an area I've specifically designed for all the things I need. I can get to them really easily and quickly. There's no faffing about trying to find things or get things. Storage wise then, I can put things like trays underneath, like this, so that I can put my little plants in there and it keeps everything neat and tidy, lets me water, all that kind of thing. Seeds then. I've got my seeds on the shelf underneath, nice and out the way, but I can get to them when I need them. Really handy in the spring months when I'm doing a lot of seed sowing. And I even use it for things like I've got boxes with lids that I can be storing bits and pieces in that I don't need access to frequently, but I want to keep them safe. So a little bit of thinking with your storage can go a long way. For example, this is something I made that didn't cost anything at all. It's 2 planks of wood that I've just balanced in the shelving that I've got on my greenhouse. And it's made this little extra bit of storage that's really handy for me to get to things. And your storage doesn't have to be clever things you buy from a gardening centre. Things like, these are the hooks that you get for your kitchen. And I've got these little bits on my greenhouse that I can actually hang hooks. And I can be putting things on there out of the way. One of my favourite things to do is my mug, because you know how often in the greenhouse you want a cup of tea. So my mug's there, easy for me to get to when I need it. And they're handy for lots of things, like you can hang bamboo canes on them to turn that into another piece of storage for things you want to get to easily, like string, tape, or my copper rings, that kind of thing. And a last bonus tip for you then on terms of storage is don't just think about what's here right around you. Look up. Most greenhouses will have some sort of eaves. Mine have these bars. This makes a great place to store things like your long bamboo canes because it's out of the way, it's out of your head height. It's not going to clutter up your greenhouse, but it keeps them nice and safe until you need them for outdoors in the garden. So you will see, come the winter months, there will be a whole flip again in my greenhouse because I actually flip it around, maybe January time when it gets its big clean, and I'll turn it into the ultimate seed starting haven come January, where I'll have my propagators and things out to help beat the cold. Remember guys, that video I promised you is linked here if you want to go and find out more in detail about making the absolute best out of your greenhouse, even when it's small. And I know you'll ask, the links to get these benches, it's in the description of the video. See you folks.